island of civil discourse in a chaotic media environment. On Friday nights, we gather the best reporters in the nation and have a conversation that's about informing the American people.
Washington Week.
All new, Friday night at 7 on Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from...
I'm Susan Linkus of the Linkus Group, a fee-based registered investment advisor specializing in financial planning, investment management, insurance strategies, and more. LinkusGroup.com, investing for life.
I'm Joanne Jenkins with AARP. In these challenging times, we need each other more than ever. We may be apart, but we're not alone. Use AARP Community Connections to find or create a mutual aid group near you. Stay connected and help those in need.
Clean Elections provides tools needed to help you cast an informed vote in the upcoming elections, like important deadlines, how to vote early, election day details, and nonpartisan information. Learn more at azcleanelections.gov.
Coming up in the next hour of local news on Arizona PBS. On Arizona Horizon, a debate between the 6 candidates running for the 3 open seats on the Arizona Corporation Commission. It's a full 1-hour debate, and it's next on Arizona Horizon.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the special Election 2020 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight's show is an hour-long debate sponsored by the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission. We will hear from the 6 candidates running for the 3 open seats on the Arizona Corporation Commission. As with all of Arizona Horizon's debates, it's not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas between candidates running for an important state office. As such, interjections and even interruptions are allowed, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we're going to do our best to make sure that that happens. The Arizona Corporation Commission is best known for regulating utilities, but commissioners are charged with a number of duties and have executive, legislative, and judicial powers. Joining us for tonight's debate, Republican Lea Marquez Peterson, who was appointed to the Corporation Commission last year to fill a vacancy. She's the former CEO of the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Democrat Bill Mundell, who served 9 years on the Corporation Commission. He's a former state lawmaker and municipal court judge. Republican Jim O'Connor, who ran for a seat on the Corporation Commission 2 years ago. He's retired after working 42 years in the securities industry. Democrat Shay Stanfield, a former teacher who served as a Cave Creek Town Council member from 2001 to 2005. Republican Eric Sloan, who ran for a seat on the Corporation Commission 2 years ago. He runs a public relations firm with his wife. And Democrat Ana Tovar, the mayor of Tolleson and a former lawmaker in both the Arizona House and Senate. Each candidate will now give a 1-minute opening statement with the order determined by random selection. Closing statements will be given in reverse order at the end of the debate. We begin with Lea Marquez Peterson.
Thank you very much, Ted. My name is Lea Marquez Peterson, and I currently serve on the Arizona Corporation Commission. I'm a wife, a mother. I've been a small business owner for decades in southern Arizona. Since being elected or appointed, to the Corporation Commission, my priority has been the affordability of utility rates. And I'm proud to represent the ratepayers, as I'm not a career politician, and I'm actually the only candidate and commissioner not based in Maricopa County. I'm also very proud of my record while serving on the commission. That is providing $40 million in rebates to TEP and APS customers during the pandemic, protecting Arizonans from disconnections during the hot summer months as well as the pandemic, focusing on broadband access for vulnerable populations. Additionally, the very first vote that I took, and I'm very proud of that, is to pass the very first code of ethics for the commission to ensure that the utilities were not influencing our election. You're going to hear a lot of ideas today, but let me be clear. I am the only candidate that is able to move Arizona forward with a real plan towards clean and affordable energy, and also by holding our utilities accountable to us, the ratepayers, and not corporate shareholders. My name is Lea Marquez Peterson, and I would appreciate your support for the Arizona Corporation Commission to retain my seat.
Thank you very much. And now we have Shay Stanfield's opening statement.
Hi, I'm Shay Stanfield, and I'm running for the Corporation Commission. I have lived in Arizona all my life and raised my two sons here. I'm a proud alumni of ASU, which enabled me to teach for 40 years in the Scottsdale School District and work with special needs kids and counseling. During that time, I also became very interested in preserving urban open space and joined with groups that could do that. That led me to the town council where I could continue that work, but this time on town council, I got an education in small water companies. And so we were moving our small water company from privately owned into something else at the time, and that gave me interface with many state and county agencies. Tonight I am here, thank you Ted, thank you PBS, with a discussion with our other candidates, and I look forward to that and being your next representative on the Corporation Commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And next we go to Anna Tovar.
Hello, I'm Anna Tovar, and I'm running for the Arizona Corporation Commission because it's time that the commission be focused on what matters most, and that is the people of Arizona. For far too long, the commission has been sided with special interest over consumers, and that needs to stop. With my experience at the state legislature and right now as a current mayor in the city of Tolleson, I'm actively and proactively bringing solutions to negate the COVID-19 for my residents. I truly want to bring that focus to Arizonans, and I want to remain as a fighter for Arizonans. Now, I want to use that experience at the Arizona Corporation Commission, from unfair rate hikes to also moving into 100% renewable energy, and creating a future that we will lead with thousands of new jobs and protecting our environment. This isn't about partisan politics or ideology. This is about bringing the focus back on Arizonans. I ask for your vote this November.
All right, thank you. For the next opening statement, we turn to Jim O'Connor.
Thank you, Arizona voters, for investing your time this evening over this next hour to listen to the cases that the six of us will bring before you. You've got a very big decision coming up on November 3rd, and that is, who are you going to choose to be your three commissioners to protect your interest, your financial interest? As was mentioned earlier, I'm retired after a 42-year career in the securities industry, and I was moved to step forward to enter this race, initially as a write-in candidate and now a candidate on the general election ballot, because I am fearful of a plan that was introduced only 2 short years ago, and that was Prop 127, which our Arizona voters, that's you, were smart enough to take down, slam down at a 70-30 defeat. That was a bad idea then. It's a bad idea now. That idea is being presented to you by our three Democrat opponents in this race. As well-intended as these lovely individuals may be, they've got a wrong-headed idea. What they are interested in doing is opposing mandates on us.
Excuse me, your 1 minute, your 1 minute opening statement is over. We'll get to that coming up in the debate. That was 1 minute for you. Let's now go to Bill Mundell for his opening statement.
Good evening. I'm Bill Mundell, and I want to return to the commission where I served for 9 years so I can protect Arizona families from nonstop, unjustified rate increases. I want to make Arizona the solar capital of the world. I want to stop the dark money spending that has corrupted the commission and our democracy in general and has led to those nonstop, unjustified rate increases. I was raised in a military family and always was taught to put community over self. I did that as a young lawyer fighting corruption in the city of Chandler, and at the age of 27 was appointed the presiding judge. I then went on to serve in the legislature for 6 years, where I wrote numerous pieces of legislation protecting Arizona's environment, protecting our mountains and our rivers and our native plants. I was then appointed by a Republican governor to the commission, where I served for 9 years. I wrote the current renewable energy standard. It needs to be increased. I look forward to making the distinction between the solar team and our opponents this evening. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
All right. And for our final opening statement, we have Eric Sloan.
Well, good evening. My name's Eric Sloan, and I'm a candidate for the Arizona Corporation Commission. Ted, thank you so much for having us tonight. This is a great opportunity because in the middle of this COVID crisis, we haven't had the opportunity to actually speak to the voters on a one-on-one level like this. My campaign is very simple. My campaign is about affordable rates. It's about consumer protections, and it's about getting a fair deal for every Arizonan. I am the only candidate that has stood up and said I will vote no on the APS rate increase. I'm the only candidate who stood up and said that turning off people's utilities at the height of the summer heat is absolutely wrong. I'm the only candidate who has said that we need to put ourselves in a position where we have no mandates and no subsidies so that when we come out of this crisis, businesses can begin to boom again. Again, my name's Eric Sloan. I look forward to the discussion tonight. I'll be an independent voice for Arizona.
All right. Thank you very much. Candidates, thank you. Let's get things started. Lea, we'll start with you, and we'll start with utility influence. Utilities in general, APS in particular. Is there too much influence on the Corporation Commission?
Well, that's a good question, Ted. I think historically, absolutely there was. We heard and had it confirmed during commission meetings that they had invested in PACs and independent expenditures to influence the races. That's why I'm so proud that one of my first votes as a new commissioner almost a year ago was on a code of ethics to ensure that the utilities could not influence and get engaged in the elections. I'm also very proud that I'm a clean elections candidate, which means that I took $5 donations from folks throughout the entire state to ensure that there was no undue influence. We absolutely need to keep those companies that we regulate out of the Corporation Commission elections.
But Shay, we'll go to you regarding the influence. Is there too much before, now?
Yes and yes. Yes, absolutely. I think the downturn came when the dark money came into the state, and we had to go up against millions of dollars while our candidates, the Democrats, were running as clean elections candidates. They ended up having millions piled into the other side of the race. And so what do we expect to happen? When APS elects their own regulators, you expect them to regulate? Don't think so. But I'm hoping that we can change this with this race, and the voters will choose something different.
Jim, what do you think about the influence of utilities in general? But we're talking about APS in particular here.
Apparently, in everything I've read and researched, APS did exercise undue influence. I think that's been aired in the public. But again, I want to bring that back to what does it look like today. I believe it's clean as a whistle. We've got 3 clean election Republican candidates. None of us owe anybody a favor. And from a personal ethics position, I will not take a free meal from anybody. I will not take a movie ticket from anybody. I will not take a travel expense or reimbursement from anybody. I pay my own way. And that's my ethic above and beyond the code of ethics with the commission.
Bill Mundell, clean as a whistle.
It's not clean as a whistle. Let's talk about what occurred in the past. As you said, in 2014, APS spent millions, $10 million to beat Sandra Kennedy. Sanders, the chair of my campaign. I have some personal knowledge of this because in 2016, APS spent over $4 million to beat Tom Chabin and me in the campaign. And so it remains to be seen whether they stay out of the election or do it indirectly. And so we really need to keep our eye on that. The dark money, as I said in my opening, has corrupted the commission. It's led to those unjustified nonstop rate increases and the crushing of rooftop solar. When did they vote? They got their utility-friendly commissioners elected in 2016 in November, and right after that, in December, they voted to crush rooftop solar. So it has a direct link on families in Arizona with unjustified rate increases and solar energy in Arizona.
Eric, we've heard clean as a whistle, and we've heard corrupt. What say you?
Well, I think that we do have some outside groups who are putting money into corporation commission races that shouldn't be putting money into corporation commission races. You know, we saw Tom Steyer come into Arizona and try to backdoor the corporation commission with the $25 million expenditure on Prop 127 that Jim alluded to before. We've seen there was about $3 million spent by an organization named CHISPA in the last election to get Sandra Kennedy elected. There's been money spent on both sides to get Democrats and Republicans elected. But this is really a race that should be a nonpartisan issue, and we really need to get back to the issues of affordability and consumer protections and a fair deal for every Arizonan.
Money spent on both sides, but Anna, one of those sides is an actual regulated utility. Is there too much influence from that utility?
Absolutely. I would agree that there is right now. We need to bring the focus back on the commission on why it was established in our Arizona Constitution. It was established to be an independent entity to protect consumers. And it's gotten away from that position, I would say, in the last 8 years in regards to how they're servicing utilities and monopolies. My focus is going to be in making sure that we bring that focus back to where it belongs, and that's serving Arizonans without having any special interest. The Code of Ethics I would like to improve upon as well too, and I would like to add additional items on there that will prevent us from taking any freebies, that will prevent us from taking any money or corporations playing into any races for corporation commissioners and candidates as well. And last but definitely not least, I feel that commissioners and candidates should be free from any special interest, and that I would also want to put in regards to having no employees, none of our immediate families being employed by these entities.
And Lea, you mentioned the Code of Ethics and in your work on that. We've heard criticism that it's nice, but doesn't go nearly far enough. How do you respond to that?
I agree. I mean, actually, the day that we voted, I supported a more stringent policy. Unfortunately, it was not voted on by my fellow commissioners. So I think we can be stricter with the Code of Ethics. We can put more protection in place. And I plan to do that once I'm reelected or elected to this seat for a 4-year term.
Shay, would a stricter Code of Ethics, would it change the perception right now that I think most people would agree that the Corporation Commission still suffers from?
It would go a long way to change the perception, but it has to be much stronger than it already is, and I go along with Anna. It goes down to taking meetings with people outside the office, going to dinner with them. Everything needs to be held in the office and put on calendars. There's no freebies, not only as far as gifts to family, extended family, or employment offers to family and extended family. It should be all barred, because we are the Supreme Court, so to speak, of the utilities. We sit in judgment of many areas in the Corporation Commission, and any conflict with family members or friends can influence us on that. So we definitely need to tighten it up, and then perhaps after a while the trust will be built back. But you can't get trust in one shot. All
right, does it need to be tightened up? Conflict of interest rules and are they strong with the ethics guidelines there? Are they strong enough when you have a regulated utility involved in those who are regulating the utility?
Well, I think that, Arizona is one of the very few states that doesn't have an independent ethics commission. The fact that we have corporation commissioners setting their own standard of ethics and then regulating that standard of ethics themselves, I think presents a problem. I think what we really need to do is we need to take a holistic approach. I think there needs to be an outside group that looks at the Corporation Commission to make sure that the things that have been discussed aren't happening. And I would be very supportive of that as an elected official on the Corporation Commission.
Bill, the perception of the corporation, has it improved the last few years?
Well, it's improved because Sandra Kennedy has been there. When Lea was talking about the vote, right now the commission is made up of 4 Republicans and 1 Democrat. So I'm glad to hear that our opponents here this evening they want to toughen up the Code of Ethics, because the Republicans had a chance to, and they didn't. And I've said there's so many loopholes in it, you could drive a Mack truck through it. And we need, to prohibit, as was mentioned by Anna and Shay, no gifts, no meals, no lodging, no trips, no nothing. And that's been occurring over the last few years. When I was on the commission, we didn't need a Code of Ethics. And in fact, we were all from the same party, and we had some ethical conduct from a fellow commissioner, and we asked that he resign. He wouldn't resign. We couldn't force him. So we went to the legislature, and they started impeachment proceedings. So it's, yes, we need to toughen up the Code of Ethics. It's sad that we need to do that. If you had the right people there over the last few years, that wouldn't occur. And I just want to add one thing to follow up on what Eric said. The organizations that he described, that was all disclosed money disclosed. That's why we know. The reason we know how much APS now has spent in 16 is because Sandra Kennedy issued a subpoena because the Republicans wouldn't do it. She pushed and got a subpoena, and we got to see all the documents, all the records showing their dark money spending. Eric has a little knowledge of that.
Respond to that,
He
please.
was involved in that.
I think that it would be, I'm sorry, did you want to finish?
Yeah, I just want to say, you have a little knowledge of that money that was spent because you were the chair of the Arizona Coalition for Reliable Electricity in 2016 that spent that $4 million against Tom Chabin and I, and you were paid over $10,000 by APS to do that.
I would love to address that one thing there. So, Bill, to that point, I was part of a Get Out the Vote effort. I've said that a number of times. I'm very happy I was part of that effort. I think every Arizonan should be voting in this state. I think this is the most important election we've seen in a very long time. I also think that it's a bit disingenuous, and I have a lot of respect for you, Mr. Mundell, that you did take money from APS when you were in the legislature. You did pass $75 million worth of APS rate hikes, in addition to other millions of dollars of rate hikes. Mrs. Tovar, Mayor Tovar, took money from APS when she was in the legislature. I think it's a bit disingenuous to say that a Get Out the Vote effort is comparative to political spending and political campaigns.
If I could
I want Anna Tovar to respond, please.
Well, I would say the difference between you and I is when you were the chair of the PAC, it wasn't just a get out to vote, Eric. It was a get out to vote for 3 Republicans on the commission. So that's where I feel that aspect.
When money is spent, but when money is spent,
no, excuse me, I'm still speaking. I'm still speaking. I feel that is a great difference in regards to getting out the vote and a target attack on encouraging for 3 yes votes for Republican candidates. When I took the money from when I was at the legislature, we didn't have these issues with APS, with SRP. We did not have any of those issues. You can check my track record in regards to my commitment in regards to our climate and our energy.
Well, and Ted, to that point, when the money was spent to help Mr. Mundell get on the commission, when the money was spent to help Commissioner Kennedy get on the commission, the money that is being spent now to help you 3 get on the commission, I think that it's a bit disingenuous, again, to say that a Get Out the Vote effort, regardless of who it's for, is not a good thing to do. You have groups that are supporting you and the solar team, and I think you should come forward. You should be honest about that.
Bill, please.
Well, just a couple thoughts. First of all, Eric, I was in the legislature over 30 years ago. Okay, let's put that in perspective. Number 2, you were the chair of the APS independent expenditure where you were paid over $10,000 to chair that committee. And wait a minute, your Republican colleagues in the Republican primary in 2018 criticized you for it. So it's not just us 3 Democrats raising the issue. Your Republican opponents in the primary in 18 did. So let's put it in perspective what you're talking about. And APS was a much different company back then. You know, they didn't get involved in commission races. They thought it was unseemly to get involved and actually elect the very commissioners that are going to decide their profit margin and all the other issues in front of the commission.
All right,
to that point, though, and to that point, Mr. Mundell, you served in the legislature for a very long time. You served on
6 years.
For 6
That's
years.
Not very long.
Well, 6 years, 30 years ago. You served 9.5 years on the Corporation Commission. You voted for a $75 million rate increase for APS on APS customers. You know, if you could explain why you raised rates on Arizonans, well, I think we'd all like to know why.
Well, I actually voted no on APS rate increases, and I also
you didn't vote no on the $75 million.
I was there 9 years, Eric, and you know, for you to say you'll never vote for a rate increase as a judge is inappropriate. You need to listen to all the facts and the evidence before pre-deciding a case. So I voted no to raise rates on APS. I voted no to raise rates on TEP. Okay, so let's put it in perspective.
Okay, I think we've got that. Jim, I want to get your comments and your thoughts on what you just heard here regarding influence from APS on people who are supposed to regulate APS.
Thank you, Ted. Those would be interesting but entirely speculative and not to the point. The big question here this evening that your voters need to hear and understand is the difference between the Democrat team, the solar team, mandating solar. We are going.
I'm sorry,
if that goes forward, that is going to look like the state of California.
Please, I'm asking you a question about APS and its influence on the Corporation Commission.
50% higher utility costs for the average Arizona
So
ratepayer.
you don't want to respond to APS's influence on the Corporation Commission?
I gave you my response.
Okay, Lea, your response, please.
Well, I mean, I think I've said before being appointed to the commission, I'd certainly heard about the bad reputation that surrounded the commission, and I'd heard about APS engagement. I haven't seen that firsthand in my year being there. We passed that code of ethics immediately. There's hypersensitivity to any influence by any regulated body before the commission. So I think that we've turned the tide. There's new leadership at APS now, too, and he's made a commitment not to engage in the commission races, and we are all clean elections candidates. So I'd like to just move on, I guess, and focus on policy and getting things done for the state of Arizona.
Let's focus.
One last thing, Ted, because he brought up, contributions from 30 years ago. Commissioner Peterson received thousands of dollars in 2018 from APS executives and from Unisource executives. So let's put it in perspective.
So
30 years ago,
that, Ted,
wait a minute, 30, you ran, what year was it?
So I ran for Congress
Right.
in Southern Arizona and received less than 1% of my contributions from Pinnacle West.
Well, you still received money from Pinnacle West, and
But in no way unduly influences me as a commissioner. I was not in a commission seat at the time and ran for an entirely separate position in Southern Arizona.
I want to get to utility disconnect policies here. Anna Tovar, we'll start with you. Should utilities be allowed to disconnect power during summer months?
I feel that there needs to be policies in place in regards in making sure that we are taking care of people so that we are preventing deaths, we are preventing people from getting ill. We need to have those standards in place. Right now, currently as a mayor and during this pandemic, I've worked extremely hard in making sure that we are protecting our consumers and making sure they have water and electricity that is always on. There's a lot of different things that we can do within our communities, especially with our lower income and our disproportionate communities that are currently hurting right now during the summer and during COVID right now. So I definitely feel and be very supportive of making sure that we have policies in place preventing the shutoffs, especially during the summer months.
Eric, should there be policies in place preventing the shutoffs, and how much discretion do you give utilities in this matter?
Well, and I appreciate what Mayor Tovar just said on that issue, because I have come out and said that this is an absolutely wrong thing for the utilities to do. In the height of summer, to shut off someone's air conditioner has resulted in the loss of life. I have a personal story about this. When I was a young child, my mother, she did the best she could, but she was raising 3 boys, and there were times where she couldn't afford to pay the utilities, and we would have to go and stay at other people's homes and abandon our home because the air conditioner was shut off. And to dehumanize a family like that, or to dehumanize a senior citizen like that, is completely unacceptable, and I would fully support policy in place that did not allow shutoffs in extreme weather.
Shay, if it sounds like everyone is supportive of policies to a certain extent on this, but how do you keep people from just basically abandoning their responsibilities to pay their bills?
I don't believe that most of the people, the majority of the people, just abandon their responsibilities. I think that when it comes to the utility rates and the way they've gone up over the years, I think it's genuinely an economy situation. We have lots of families in need. And in fact, I am totally against any shut-off policy. My angle on this is when instead of hanging a piece of paper on a door and going away and expecting somebody to find it and pay the bill, that's inappropriate. At that point, partnerships with mental health and social services need to kick into gear. The family needs to be visited. They need to be brought in, find out what their needs are, how can we do this, and how can we get this done. Because no one that has a family particularly wants to cut off utilities. In fact, to give you an example from the town council, when you're doing buildings, you can't get an occupancy permit unless your water and electricity is on and your utilities are hooked up. So therefore, when you don't have utilities in your home, that's considered a home that's not occupiable. So in the effort to reach out to our families and so many low-income families, and even families like in this last pandemic.
Yes.
I'm going to just wrap it up. We're going to have more of that, and I really want to help those families.
How much do we help those families, Jim?
Thank you for that very good question, Ted. This is an opportunity for all utilities, not only those regulated by the Corporation Commission, but outfits like SRP and municipal-owned utilities should be very compassionate. They've got a public relations opportunity to come to the rescue of those who are in desperate times. So I'm very empathetic to that position. Lea Marquez Peterson just yesterday, I believe, raised a vote in the commission that passed successfully, I believe, where I believe APS alone is going to be returning $51.9 million in charges and credits, and that's a very smart thing for them to have accepted politely.
Bill, the responsibilities of those who pay their bills and those who can't pay their bills, and how far do you go in either direction on this?
Well, shutting somebody off, in my opinion, should be a last resort and not a first resort. That should be the last thing the utility does. And there needs to be, if you're going to do that, you need to have a face-to-face conversation with the person. They were just putting door hangers on people's doors and then shutting off their electricity. The 72-year-old woman, the tragic story out in Sun City, owed $51, I think, and 84 cents on her bill. She had a deposit with the utility, with APS, and they still shut her off. So shutting somebody off should be the last resort and not the first resort, especially for people, the elderly, pregnant women, people with medical conditions. So, yes, at some point you can shut someone off, but it shouldn't be the first option. I mean, the utilities have a lot of other options. I mean, they can, they have the ability to send it to a collection agency before they shut people off. They have the ability to sue. They're not hurting. APS made $1 billion over the last 2 years, so they got a boatload of money. And so for $51, a 72-year-old woman died. It was tragic, and it should have never happened.
Lea, should APS forgive the debt from those who have not paid their bills this summer?
I think that's a tough question, and not just in Arizona are we grappling with that, but across the nation where we have had disconnection policies in place. I think that what we need to do instead is to advocate for additional federal dollars, LIHEAP dollars, which are specifically for heating electricity for low-income families. We have a lot of families right now that have been furloughed that had not experienced this before. We need to make sure we're promoting and they're aware of our utility assistance programs. We need to do all we can to work out payment plans with folks and allow them not to be disconnected during the hot summer months as well as the pandemic. Forgiving the entire amount, which I know has been out there in discussion, we haven't yet discussed that on the commission, but puts the burden on the rest of the ratepayers. So really it's a question for ratepayers of APS, TEP, and others. Are they willing to carry the burden of their neighbor? And I think there are other alternatives that we can look at first.
I want to look at the renewable energy mandate. Eric, 15% of power by 2025. How do you feel about the mandate? Does the Corporation Commission even have the legal standing to enforce such a mandate?
Well, there was a recent Supreme Court case here in Arizona that gave that power to the legislature and took it away from the Corporation Commission. That's a very important component to understand when we're talking about the mandate. I have been against mandates and subsidies for the last 2 campaigns, and the reason I'm against those is because anytime the Corporation Commission mandates or subsidize something, Arizonans end up paying more for something than they should have. With the last solar mandate, Arizonans have paid $1.2 billion more than they should have if we had bought that solar on the open market. Solar is one of the cheapest forms of energy. So when you're talking about affordability and you're talking about lowering rates, solar is going to play a big component in that. And I just don't think it's appropriate for the commission or even the legislature to get in the way of the economy and try to say that this is a winner and this is a loser.
What do you think about that, Anna?
Well, I definitely feel that the corporation plays a role in making sure that we have a plan of action. And that is something that we are lacking right now in regards to goals that we should have and hold those entities accountable. The only way that we're going to establish renewable energy are also our solar capital as well too is how do we get there, and there must be a plan of action in place that has goals, and also we're holding as the Corporation Commission those entities accountable to meet those goals at a specific time.
To Eric's claim that the mandate just means higher prices, you say...
No, absolutely not. It doesn't mean higher prices. As mentioned, if we're working into a carbon-free renewable energy, we know that it'll be less money if we transition into solar. So for me, it'll be a win-win situation. It'll create a new economy with green jobs that will be paying our Arizonans and creating those thousands of jobs that we desperately need.
Renewable energy mandates, Jim, jobs, the future, your thoughts?
I am a free market capitalist, and I want to make a point of information if some here have never heard this before. There is no one corporation, APS or any other enterprise, that does not pass through 100%, actually in this case, with a markup, with a fee to themselves, to pass through any mandated increases to our ratepayers who we're all talking about protecting. I want to protect voters' pocketbooks. Everyone here in this room and behind the cameras and watching tonight, that's what I'm in it for, protecting the population. It's a fantasy to believe that there's some company with an endless pot of gold that can pick up the check for all this social redistribution. It's impossible.
Shay, a fantasy. Mandates just basically make-believe.
No, a reality, actually, because we've seen on the commission over the past, dozen years since the original mandate went in with 15% by 2025, that with the Republican majority, that slowly eroded down to goals to nothing. So now here we are in 2020, they're not even to 14% yet. So they're not, I don't see the utility companies willing to move and really make a concerted effort at cleaning up our air, cleaning up our energy, and going to more affordable options unless they are strongly encouraged with mandates and standards and held accountable for steps to get to those mandates.
Lea, should a renewable energy mandate be a /clean energy mandate and thus include nuclear, or should a renewable energy mandate not include nuclear?
So I've proposed a plan, Ted, that is for 100% clean energy, zero carbon emissions by the year 2050. And what that would mean is that we'd have also a 50% interim goal of zero carbon emissions by 2035. And I phrase it that way because we aren't picking winners and losers, as Eric mentioned earlier. Yes, I believe nuclear has to be a part of that. It already provides close to 30% of the energy for us here in the state. But in my year on the commission, I've learned about so many new technologies and innovations that are coming forth. I don't want to stifle that at all. I want that creation for Arizona. So I think if we put that mark in the sand, we set that goal of 100% clean energy by 2050 and zero carbon emissions, we're going to grow renewables, we're going to grow the new innovations and so on that will come forward that we don't even know about yet.
Bill, a clean energy mandate with nuclear as opposed to a renewable energy mandate, which, as has been claimed over here, would be much more difficult to achieve.
Well, Ted, as you know, I have a little background in this because I co-authored the current renewable energy standard, the 15% by the year 2025. I can tell you that if it was a goal, it wouldn't be getting done. When I first got on the commission, it was a goal, and there was no investment at all in solar, wind, geothermal, or any of the other renewable energy sources. And number two, there's studies that have shown, to Jim's point, that customers have saved over $2 billion because of the renewable energy standard, because you don't have to build big, gigantic new fossil fuel plants. You don't have to build transmission lines. Yes, everything comes from the customer. If a utility wants to build a power plant, they got to go raise rates on customers. So there's studies that show $2 billion have been saved because of the renewable energy standards that we've put in place in 2006. We've fallen behind all of our neighboring states now. You know, a lot of them are at 50, 60, 70%. So I think it's important to note renewable energy will bring great jobs, great paying jobs all throughout Arizona and protect our environment.
Should it include nuclear?
Well, it does right now.
But should it include nuclear?
Well, we've got to make a distinction between clean, quote unquote, and renewable. Because when you say 100% clean by 2050, that includes Palo Verde, which is, close to 50% of that percentage. So it does right now. And it does, and it will until the 2040.
Okay, so you're okay with it,
Yeah,
including
it is.
Okay, all
There's
right.
nothing. Well, we can't. There's nothing. I'm okay with it.
Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out there. Jim, we'll start with you. Deregulation. Is it time for deregulation in the power market?
I am right now getting into that component and studying, and I've been participating since I entered this race in June in seminars and other Zoom calls with all kinds of participants on it to get as much information as I can. So to come out with which way do you vote on that at this moment, I can't come out definitively, and have candidly been advised not to express a bias on an item that would be coming before me as a voting member of the commission. When voters vote me onto that commission, I want to give a good, objective representation of them. I don't want to be one who has to recuse himself from participating.
All right, Shay, the idea of deregulation and the concern and the promise that maybe competition promotes flexibility and would lower prices. Your thoughts?
It's always a good idea to bust up monopolies when you get a chance. But sometimes it doesn't make sense, and sometimes it does, and how much. What happened years ago with Ma Bell, I'm old enough to remember that, when it got busted up into small little companies. I think that deregulation and breaking it up, great idea to investigate. The devil's in the details. We know there's good plans, and we know there's bad plans, and not all plans work for us, and we'll have to figure out what works for Arizona. But I do think that consumers need an option when they're unhappy and can't get resolution from their companies. Where do they go? So it's worth exploring.
Yeah, I'm hearing people saying, Lea, let's look at it, let's think about it, let's talk about it. Should we do it?
So we've had a number of long meetings, I will call them, at the commission talking about retail competition or deregulation. There are about 14 other states in the country that have already done some type of deregulation. So the first step I took was reaching out to commissioners in those states and saying what's worked, what hasn't, what are best practices. And I have a lot of concerns. I mean, I certainly support free market principles, but there are a lot of unintended consequences related to consumer fraud. And ultimately, the reason to do it would because it lowers prices for ratepayers. And I haven't been convinced yet of that. So there are continuing workshops and meetings we're having as we continue to debate that.
What do you think, Anna?
Well, I would also say that I'm doing my due diligence in regards to the research of what's happening across the United States. But I feel firmly as well, too, in regards to our constituency and making sure that we're not choosing winners and losers. My sole focus at the Commission is going to make sure that I'm providing consumer protections, and every decision that I make, I'm going to have our citizens first in mind. So I look forward to, hearing more about this issue, researching it more, and making sure as a commissioner that we can make the right decision for Arizona families.
There is, Eric, an argument that a regulated monopoly is picking winners and losers. You buying that?
Well, I think that we're in the system that we're in because of decisions that have been made in the past by past commissions and past legislatures. I don't think it really benefits us to debate how we got to this point. I think it only benefits us to debate about how we're going to move forward. As a commissioner, I would never vote for anything that would increase the cost of utilities on families and businesses. And I think that there's no conversation that's too big to be had at the Corporation Commission. And this is something that has been talked about for 20 years now. And it continues to be talked about. And I think that we need to have that conversation at the Commission.
All right, Bill, you got a firm response on this, or just let's look into it and let's talk about it and think about it?
Well, what I said earlier, because commissioners are judges, before you come out and take a position on something, you're supposed to hear all the evidence and the facts. And so in this particular case, my bottom line is what is in the best interest of Arizona families and businesses? What will provide the lowest rates and the cleanest energy? Whichever system we decide to utilize to get electricity to the people of Arizona, we need to make sure we have vigorous enforcement and oversight to protect consumers from gouging. One of the benefits of having been on the commission for 9 years, I was at the commission when deregulation, a number of states had deregulated, and including California. And what happened in California was they had rolling blackouts, brownouts, skyrocketing prices, market manipulation, and outright fraud. It led to the recall of Gray Davis, a Democratic governor, and that's when Arnold got elected. So we need to be very careful, very analytical when we go from 100 years of monopoly regulation to competition or deregulation. So yes, I'm going to do my due diligence also, and I'm not going to reach a conclusion on a case that's going to come before the commission before I hear all the facts.
Okay, so it sounds like everyone agrees that it's worth considering, but still too early to make a firm decision. All right, we'll move on from there. Let's keep this one relative. Let's make this a yes or no, just a yes or no. Let's see if we can handle that, and then we'll move on. Lea, we'll start with you. Climate change. Is it happening, and is it being caused by man's activities?
Yes, I believe so.
Bill?
Yes.
What do you think, Jim?
It's a little bit like COVID-19. There's a real virus out there, but I'm not going to turn the world inside out because I'm not God and I can't change the climate.
So you're saying yes, it is caused by man's activities?
I'm not convinced.
You're not, because you're saying no. Okay, we got it. Shay, yes or no?
Yes.
What do you think, Eric?
Yes, I think that we have an impact on the environment.
Anna?
Yes, and the time to act is now.
All right, so we got that worked out really well.
Yes.
All right, Lea, we'll start with you. What do we do about it?
You know, we put good policies and do an Arizona First clean energy plan so that we are providing direction to the utilities that we regulate, that we're going in the right direction. And we put accountability in place so that every year, every 5 years, every 10 years, we know that they're going in the direction that we determine and we have 3 votes for. And I hope that that's 100% clean energy and 100%, zero carbon by 2050. I also want to point out there's a lot of debate right now around the years, 2040, 2050, but we're setting policy for the entire state, not just APS. And the timing in which APS can achieve something could be entirely different for Tucson Electric Power and Unisource. So I'm sensitive to that. Being the only commissioner not based in Maricopa County, I want to look at the entire state. So I still stand with 100% clean energy by 2050.
Bill, how best do we address man's impact on the climate? We're seeing drought, we're seeing wildfire, we're seeing craziness out there.
Well, I think the discussion we're having here this evening is excellent. I mean, we need to move forward with renewable energy in Arizona. There are different plans out there. Commissioner Kennedy has what's called the CREST plans. As I said, I co-authored the REST rules. She has the CREST rules, and that was 50% by the year 228. There are other proposals out there to 50% by the year 230, 245. And what's interesting now is that we talked about 127. APS now has come out in favor of almost the same thing that 127 was, with 45% renewables going forward. So the times have changed. TEP has come out, and they should be commended. They worked with the University of Arizona to increase their percentages. So what a difference 2 years makes on the outlook and the approach from the utilities on what the percentage should be.
Okay, Jim, for those who are more convinced than you that it's happening out there, what do we do about it?
Well, I'm not suggesting we do nothing about it because I'm not personally convinced. I'll go along with President Trump's comment last night. I want crystal clean water and pure air for everybody in Arizona and everybody in the country. So we need to do individually acting responsibly, not to be polluters ourselves just out of our homes. And to the extent we act on the Corporation Commission, I'm supporting Leah's comment about what we've already doing. I, too, applaud TEP and APS as I've read their reports, and very, very encouraged to see that these outfits that may not have acted so appropriately in the past have certainly, under new management, are doing something about it.
Okay, Shay, we're kind of running short on time here. What do we do about this?
We get elected to the commission. We elect the Solar Team 2020 to the commission, and we have a plan, and lots of it is sitting right there on the desk at the commission as we speak, and we negotiate that and we get it going. Because at the end of the day, as we can tell, there's usually more said than done. So it's time to get the doing in place here and roll forward, because we're not getting any better on air quality.
All right, Eric.
Well, I think that what we don't need to do is we don't need to adopt a California-style model. I think California leads the nation in bad ideas. I think you're seeing an exodus of Californians into Arizona, and they don't want the same policies that they left. I think we need to have a focus on carbon-free energy. I think we need to make sure that we don't put subsidies and mandates in place that would exclude us from participating in future technologies. that is what has to happen.
All right, Anna, last word on this. Everyone seems to agree to some extent that climate change is happening and man's involved. What's next?
What's next is needed is a plan of action that will get us to our goal in 2040 and 2050 so that we can have an Arizona that has clean air and clean water. But that's going to take entities coming together, working together for this goal. It's going to take research as well, too. It's going to take this private-public partnerships, also working with our universities so that we can be aggressive in regards to meeting these goals. But ultimately, a plan in place needs to come together so that we can move Arizona forward.
All right, and we will stop it right there. Thank you all very much. Time now for closing statements, and going in reverse order of our opening remarks, we start with Eric Sloan.
Well, thank you so much for letting me be here tonight, Ted. I really appreciate it. We've had such a wonderful conversation and a civil debate, which is something I think we all desperately needed after last night's excursion. But again, my name's Eric Sloan. My primary reason for running for the commission was to make sure that we have affordable utilities, that we put consumer protections in place that we really don't have access to now, and that we get a fair deal for every Arizonan. In the middle of this pandemic, my kitchen table has become my office, my child's classroom, and one of the things that I've been talking about is the suspension of peak rates. Utilities are seeing record profits right now, and we are seeing record bills, and that has to stop. And when I get to the commission, I'm going to fight for Arizona families and seniors and everyday Arizonans to make sure that we're getting the fairest deal possible. My name's Eric Sloan. You can check me out at azcentral.com. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
All right, and thank you. Now the closing one-minute statement from Bill Mundell.
Well, as I said in my opening, I want to return to the commission so I can protect Arizona families, churches, schools, and businesses from nonstop rate increases, fight global warming by making Arizona the solar capital of the world, and stop the dark money that has resulted in those unjustified rate increases and the crushing of rooftop solar. You know, every Arizonan, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, should be concerned about the undue influence the utilities have had on the commission. I ask, if you give me the honor and the privilege of returning to the commission, I'll fight for you every day. I won't let you down. I ask for your vote, and I also ask for the solar team vote 2020. Thank you for your time and attention this evening.
All right, thank you very much. And now let's go to Jim O'Connor for the next closing statement.
Voters and viewers, on Election Day, you will be deciding which three of the six of us this evening are going to best protect you. If you want someone who's not a career politician, someone who will be a watchdog for your family's financial interest for the next 4 years, someone who's accessible and will listen to your concerns through monthly town hall meetings that I will initiate, and most importantly, someone who knows the difference between Arizona and California and wants to keep that difference, because common sense dictates that you don't want to pay 50% more for electricity than you're paying today, which is what we see in California. You don't want rolling blackouts, which is what we see in California. And what we're seeing in California is all about mandating solar, courtesy of the solar team. Jim O'Connor, I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Jim. And now we get a closing statement from Anna Tovar.
Well, thank you, Ted, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss very important issues facing the Corporation Commission. As you've heard throughout this past hour, the Corporation Commission affects every person's life day in and day out, from advocating for fair water and also electric prices, and making sure that we have a future that is planned out, that we can have a strong economy and green jobs. For me, it is a time to reset the Commission to where it belongs, and that is for advocating for everyday Arizonans. And I'm positive that the Solar Team 2020 will have Arizona's families at top of mind. I do want to go to the Commission and represent Arizona families. And my promise to Arizona voters is that you will be represented and will be top of mind in every decision that I make. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And we now turn to Shay Stanfield for her closing statement.
Thank you, Ted and PBS, for inviting us here tonight. I think it's been a really great discussion. I'm asking for your vote on the Arizona Corporation Commission to fight the corruption that has ignored you for so many years. If I'm elected, I will put you back into the decision-making seat. You will be in mind for everything that we do, Arizona families, Arizona individuals. And we must move the renewable energy standards forward in order to reach our goals and our standards. If we don't create this, we're going to continue to lose jobs. We're going to continue to have shutoffs. We're going to continue to have a cleaner or dirtier environment. We must do this to create a better energy future for all of us. Thank you for the vote for Solar Team 2020, and we look forward to serving you.
Thank you very much. And with our final closing statement, we have Lea Marquez Peterson.
Thank you, Ted. Again, my name is Lea Marquez Peterson. It's been an honor to serve you as a commissioner over the last year. I mentioned in my opening statement, but I'm very proud of my record of providing $40 million in rebates to APS and TEP customers and supporting a policy of no disconnects during this pandemic and the hot summer months. I've also been focusing on broadband access for vulnerable populations, and again, proud that one of my very first votes was for the Code of Ethics to ensure that the utilities are not engaged in our elections. I would appreciate your support. My website is voteforlea.com, and I'm Lea Marquez Peterson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you all, candidates. Good discussion. It's good to have you all here. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us for this Clean Elections 2020 debate. We have more debates coming up on Arizona PBS. On October 5th at 5 p.m., we'll hear from Republican incumbent Congresswoman Debbie Lesko and her Democratic challenger, Michael Moscato. They'll vie for the seat in Congressional District 8. Then, next night, October 6th, it's our much-anticipated debate for the U.S. Senate as Republican Senator Martha McSally goes up against Democratic challenger Mark Kelly. That's live at 7 p.m. Again, that's October 6th. On October 8th, we have the Congressional District 1 debate between Democratic Congressman Tom O'Halloran and Republican challenger Tiffany Shedd. That's at 5 p.m. The next night, October 9th at 5 p.m., it's the debate between Maricopa County Sheriff Democrat Paul Penzone and his Republican challenger Jerry Sheridan. And on October 13th, join us at 5 p.m. for a debate between Democratic incumbent Greg Stanton and his Republican challenger for the 9th Congressional District, David Giles. And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thanks so much for joining us. You have a great evening.